All right, so today we're going to continue with what we learned yesterday. You can see that I've got my screen split already, which means we'll be heavy on Desmos. So today I can solve inequalities with variables on both sides using distributive property and combining like terms. I can show my proficiency by scoring a 70% or higher on the exit ticket. Just want to remind you, when we're using Desmos, there's a couple of steps. So we put our left and our right hand sides in. We find out which answer choice makes the sides match. We eliminate bad answers. That's our good test taking skill. And then the last three steps kind of all work together. We just want to look at the x values. We move all the x's to the left-hand side. And if the x is positive, we leave the inequality alone. If the x is negative, we flip the inequality. So when I say x's, I mean variables. So they're not always going to be x, and we'll see that today. All right, so with Desmos, I'm going to go ahead and take the left-hand side, and I'm going to put that in Desmos. Then I'm going to take the right-hand side and put that in Desmos. Then my variable is x, so x equals. I start with a, and we see that x equals 7. That means my left-hand side is 16, my right-hand side is 16. So 7 is definitely going to be a number of interest. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of C and D. Now you can test 12 and 24. You'll see that they do not equal. That the left and right hand sides do not equal one another. So what we want to do here now is I'm going to get rid of some stuff. All right, I'm just going to get rid of this -5. It doesn't have a variable attached to it. And I'm going to get rid of this +1 because there's no variable attached to it. And I'm just going to focus on my variables and my numbers that are working with my variables. So I see I have a 3x. I'm still going to keep my same inequality sign. It's going to be greater than, and I have a 2 multiplying into an x. And I can tell it's multiplying because it's right up next to the parenthesis, which means I need to distribute. Now remember, I got rid of the +1, so we don't even have to worry about distributing it over, to the other side. So I'm going to have my 2x. Now step 5 was to get my x's, or my variables, all to the left-hand side. As you can see in every one of these answer choices, the x is on the left. So I want to get my x to the left. So I do that by subtracting 2x from both sides. And I can subtract because I know that the 2x initially was positive, so I'm going to use the inverse, so these cancel. And 3 minus 2 will give me a +1x and greater than. And you would have a 0 here. For the remainder of today, I'm just going to leave it blank, because our main focus is this guy right here. So I can see that my 1x is positive, right? I can see that my 1x is positive. And remember, if we look at our rules, if x is positive, leave the inequality alone. If x is negative, flip the inequality, right? So my x is positive, I leave the inequality alone. I look for the inequality that is greater than, this is greater than, bam, it's x. Or A, it's A, sorry. All right, on to this guy. So same thing. I'm going to put the left-hand side into Desmos, which is 2, 1 minus x plus 11. And then the right-hand side is 3, parentheses 2x minus 1. And my variable, again, is x. So now I need to check these numbers right here. All the numbers in my possible answer. So x is less than -2. So let me try negative. Let me not try -2 there. Let me try -2 over here. And you can see that my left-hand side is 17. My right-hand side is -15. They are not equal. So let me try 5. I get 3 and 27, not equal. Let me try 2. I get 9 for both. So A and B are out. So now I'm looking at C and D. So here all I have to do again is I'm going to look at my x's. So this 11 can go away. I don't need to worry about him. This 1 right here can go away. Because remember, I'm going to distribute this 2 to the 1 and to the -1. But I'm not really worried about what happens with that 1. And over here, this -1 goes away. Now notice when I got rid of this -1, right, this 1, the negative sign or subtraction sign went with it. Over here, I have my x, but I left the subtraction sign because as we remember from equations or combining like terms, you always bring the sign to the left of the number or variable. You know, we always bring the sign to the left with it. So I distribute my 2 here. So 2 times a negative 1x, 2 times negative 1 will be negative 2x. And that's going to be less than or equal to, and when I bring my 3 here, 3 times 2 is 6, and don't forget your x. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this down here. Remember, I want to get my variables all to the left-hand side, and to do that, I do the inverse of addition because that is positive, which is subtraction, and I subtract 6x, and I get negative 8x is less than, and again, we would have a 0 here. Sorry, I can't help it. I have to make the statement like what it is. All right, anyways, so I can see here that my variable is negative, and when my variable is negative, this sign has to switch. Oops, and I forgot to bring down the equals too. All right, and when we do that, we look for a greater than or equals to, greater than or equals to. You can see the answer is C. All right, now for all of you math people who like to do things the traditional way, I will do this one by hand. Right, so I'm going to distribute first. So I distribute my 3 to my x and my 3 to my negative 4. That's going to give me a 3x minus 12. I don't know why that keeps happening. I have my less than or equal to sign, and I just bring down what I didn't touch. Remember, I want to bring my variable to my left-hand side, so I'm going to subtract my x. Remember, there's a 1 here. If you guys are more comfortable with that, these will cancel out. I'll have a 2x minus 12. Again, not quite sure why that happened. Minus 12, and that's still less than or equal to a negative 6. The opposite or inverse of subtraction is addition. So I'll have 2x is less than or equal to what appears to be a positive 6. I can divide by 2, and that will leave me with an x is less than or equal to 3. So if you do it by hand, you kind of go straight, you work straight down, and you get the answer. But that's not to say that there's nothing wrong with using Desmos to do a couple of tricks. Because at least if you had used Desmos, you would have known immediately that A and B were off the table, and you would have had a 50-50 shot. All right, let me check these out one more time. Perfect. All right, so again, rocking out with Desmos. So I'm going to put the left-hand side of my equation in here. Don't forget you got your little fraction button, and there's never a need to hit it that many times. Well, at least not in 8th grade core math. All right, and we're going to put our right-hand side in, which is 2x. Our variable is x equals. So there's one thing I want to point out immediately. And I should have pointed this out before we even put it in Desmos. You see here we have a greater than or equals to sign. So that means eventually we're going to work our way down to x is greater than or equal to or less than or equal to a number. So we're going to have x is greater than or equal to something, or x is less than or equal to something. Well, it's fair to say that that x is also equal to that something, right? So if I have a 3, 3 can be greater than or equal to 3. So when you have a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, your dot, your point on the number line on the graph is going to be filled in, versus when you have just a greater than or a less than, it will be an open circle. So we see that we have a greater than or equals to, so that means A and D they're gone immediately, no work really done at all. So try and remember, this is just something you're gonna have to remember. I'm sure you've seen it before. So from here, we don't even really need to use Desmos other than just to check to make sure that 4 is gonna help us, and we can see that 4 is a point of interest. So now we just need to figure out the sign. Well, I can get rid of this plus 20, and that will leave me with x over 3 But remember, x over 3 is actually 1/3 x. So I'm going to write it as such, 1/3 x, and that is going to be greater than or equal to 2x. So I'm going to subtract 2x from 1/3. So for a second, I'm just going to ignore the x's here. So when I have, when I have 1/3 minus 2, of course, no, it's not working. Right? That's the same as 1/3 minus 6/3, right? Because it's 2 over 1. All right, hold on, give me a second. Because that's the same as, what we're doing is we're getting a common denominator to add or subtract fractions. So that's 2 over 1 times 3 over 3, which would be 1. And you can see that 2 times 3 is going to be 6, and 1 times 3 is going to be 3. All right, and when you subtract this, you will get a negative 5/3. So what we will have on the left-hand side is a negative 5/3 x, and that is greater than or equal to. So with this, we can tell that since our variable is negative, we need to switch this sign. And when we do such, we get a sign like this. Now we have less than or equals to. Well, a nice little trick here that I've learned is that you can add a line in the middle, and it shows you the direction that you should be going. So it matches C. So C is going to be our answer. And the reason that works is that what we're saying when we're saying less than or equal to is we are saying that x is less than or equal to 4. So all x values that will work for this inequality are less than or equal to 4. And you could test that. You could plug a 3 in, you could plug a 2 in and see that it works. You could plug a positive 10 in and see that it doesn't work. All right. See if that helped. There we go. All right, cool, good to know. So if I just unplug it and plug it back in, it'll start working better. All right, so again, I'm gonna type in the left-hand side, 3k minus 14k plus 20. And the right-hand side, 2 minus 6k minus 12, and k equals. Well, just like the last one, I noticed that my inequality here is a greater than. And we know that greater than means that it's not going to include the number on the number line. So it's going to be an open circle. So with this one, I'm just going to save you guys the trouble. You can see that we have a -6 and a +6. Let's just test those and see if they even work. So we have -6, we get 86 and 26 for our left and right hand side, so that's not going to work. And I do +6, I get a -46 for the left and a -46 for the right. So without going any further, C is it. All right. And if you'd like proof for that, I would suggest watching the one before and giving it a go. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one by hand. All right. So again, I see that I need to distribute. So I'm distributing my 3. And I get 3b minus 6 plus 20 is less than or equal to 9 plus 2b. I'm going to combine like terms on my left-hand side. On my right-hand side, I realize that I cannot. So I have 3b plus 14, and that's going to be less than 9 plus 2b. 2b. And then I'm going to get my variable to the left-hand side. So I will subtract 2b from both sides. These will cancel out. That will leave me with a positive b. Remember, there's a 1 here. You can put it there, but it is not required. Plus 14, which is less than or equal to 9. And I will subtract 14 from both sides, which will give me a b is less than or equal to -5. Now notice I did not switch my sign here. because I was not multiplying or dividing by a negative number. I was adding or subtracting. I was actually subtracting in this case. All right, so I need to find which one of these guys says that b is less than or equal to -5. Well, right away, I know that b is not an answer because this is an open circle. So you're gone. I know that c is not an answer because of this 5 right here. I'm looking for a -5. And remember, now this is a trick that works longhand or Desmos or using any other tricks. If I put that, remember I have a less than or equal to sign. If I put that arrow in there, it's pointing this way. So we know it's not going to be A, ergo it's D. All right, well, I hope that was helpful. I hope you all have a great afternoon, and I will see you in class, and good luck on the test.